The holidays can be a ton of fun, but if you've been eating a little less healthy than usual, you're not alone. It's pretty easy to overdo the sweets and heavy meals at holiday events, which is why eating better is such a common New Year's goal. That's a lot easier said than done though, and there's a lot of bad information out there. That's why I brought on Angelo Polley from Metpro to talk about creating a nutrition plan tailored to your needs. Angelo is an internationally recognized expert in fitness and nutrition. He's been featured in major media outlets such as Men's Health, Sports Illustrated, and the Wall Street Journal for his specialty in coaching athletes and weight loss sciences. We'll get into how to set nutrition goals for the new year, including how to define your nutrition goals, what people often get wrong when it comes to nutrition, why snacking is such a powerful tool for runners, and why if you have a goal to lose weight, you might actually need to start eating more. Whether you want to get a little leaner in the new year, or fuel your heavy mileage to run a personal best in 2025, proper nutrition is one of the best ways to help hit those goals. So let's get into it. All right, I'm joined by Angelo from the team at Metpro Nutrition. Angelo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's awesome to be here, Corey. This is going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to the chat.
I'm looking forward to it too. As we're recording this, we're kind of like just before the holiday season. So I'd love to hear from you. Nutrition-wise, food-wise, what are you looking forward to most this holiday season?
So for me, this season, I actually, I do take a little bit of vacation, but for me, this is my busy season. As you can imagine, for the beginning of the year, everyone wants to get in shape. They want to start their new nutrition plan, their new exercise plan. They want to set new goals. So I will actually be running for the next 2 weeks straight. But I am definitely looking forward to a little bit of downtime, especially after the beginning of the year. And I will probably turn off my ringer. I will probably get together with my family, my brother sometimes, and we like to play retro video games, retro strategy games, and that's what I geek out on when I'm not working and not doing anything important. So that's what I have to look forward to.
Nice. Any snacks while you play those video games?
Yeah, I'll probably eat things I tell my clients not to for a day here, a day there, but not for long, because I got to stay on point. I got things to do. I got places to be. So, no, I'm actually pretty good about, I have learned what works and what doesn't in that department. So you need to have some indulgences from time to time. The key is it needs to be calculated. It can't just be random. Like, well, we'll see what happens. Well, I can tell you what's going to happen. I've dieted 20,000 people. I can tell you what's going to happen. Now, if you say, look, I'm on point, I'm eating clean, I've got my veggies to snack on, I've got my lean proteins, I've got things that are approved that I like, but this Friday I'm going out with the boys, that's fine. If you can count on one hand, you know, the times this month where you're gonna go out and party and have a good time, we're gonna be just fine. The issue is the nickel and dime stuff. When it turns into, well, I didn't eat good last night, so I might as well start tomorrow, but this morning I'll just grab this donut and, you know, these snack foods here and some chips left on the counter. It can get ugly real fast. What about you, Corey? What are you going to be eating?
Ooh, tough to say. Honestly, I think I'm not planning to go away anywhere, so I think I'm just looking forward to hopefully having some more visits with family and getting some nice home-cooked meals.
There you go. There you go. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, tough to beat. I'm curious on this piece. You talk about people like the nickel and diming, or you go out a little more than expected. Do you find that most of your clients are pretty good about letting themselves have a little leeway but sticking to the plan, or do you find that people maybe are a little bit too binary with their nutrition, either sticking to a plan or not sticking to the plan?
Yeah, great question. So this is kind of the nerdy stuff that we dive into at my company, Metpro. We love working with people and answering those questions. And the truth is most people struggle with that balance. And we see all over the board. In fact, we have the client that it's like, John, you need to go and, you know, eat yourself a piece of cake or have that burger. Because John is like so rigid and so fun. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But we can get so caught up in that. You know, when you're seeing results and you're seeing those returns on that investment, you're motivated to really stick to it. But it is really important. Life, you know, there's few things you enjoy in life better than good food and drink, right? So you have to indulge once in a while. Here's where that becomes a slippery slope. Most people don't have good awareness of really how often they deviate from their strategy, nor a good concept of scientific terms severity. Now, we know rational terms in what we perceive what it feels like. So let me give you an analogy. I'll have a client that'll come to me and it's like, Angelo, what's the deal? I've been practically perfect on my diet. I haven't lost weight this week. I'm like, okay, well, what's practically perfect? Well, I ate perfectly for breakfast. I had what you assigned me for my snacks. I ate a clean lunch. Only at dinner I had pizza. That's the only difference. So for that person, rationally, here's what it feels like. It feels like, boy, I nailed it first meal of the day. I nailed it second meal of the day. I nailed it third. I nailed it 5 out of 6 meals and snacks. So I mess up on one and it blows my results. That's a rational appraisal because that's how we feel. Now let's talk math. The math is the reality, is that pizza and wings meal or whatever it is, I'm just using that as an example, ended up tripling the carbohydrate allotment for that person for the day and increasing by 60% the calories, even though it felt like a very small portion of the daily total, you see? So perception and physiological reality are often two very different things. So what our coaches do is they help their clients to understand. Sometimes our clients are like, oh, could I, I'm afraid, but is it going to be a big deal if I have this? And we're like, no, that's not a big deal at all. Because in their mind, they're thinking, well, that's going to throw off my results. Whereas there are some things that are really a big deal depending on what your goals are. So performance is different from fat loss, is different from muscular development. So depending on where someone's at, we got to really put them on the path to make sure they're getting there in a timely fashion. But we work closely with people to help them identify what's a big deal and what's not a big deal. Now, you'll probably laugh at this, Corey, but if you were my client, all right, so here's what I would tell you. Here's my spiel. Every one of my clients has heard this. Said if you go to grandma's and have her apple pie twice a year because grandma makes the best apple pie in the world, you are going to hear nothing from me. Nothing. But if it's Tuesday and you're sitting at work and nothing exciting is going on, but then there's that dish of stale candy sitting on the table there, the heart-shaped Pepto-Bismol flavor candies, and you get into them just because they were there, you're going to hear from me, because that's the nickel and dime stuff that chips away at the results that we're working for. So
Angelo, you're so right with the everyday stuff, but I'm curious, when we talk about results, as you said, it's important to keep in mind what those results are, because I'm just coming off a marathon, and when you're in those few days before a marathon, if you're snacking on those stale candies, that's great. You're carbo loading. So
that's right.
What are the goals that people are coming to you with?
All across the board. So we are a performance nutrition. My company is a performance nutrition company, and this is what I've taught for years and years. I've had the fortune of working with some of the highest paid athletes in the world. That's our headliners. Everybody knows these big names we work with. 88% of people we work with, even runners, even athletes, 88% cite either weight loss, or if not weight loss, improved body composition among their goals. So that is by far, and I'm sure that's no surprise, but that is by far the most common thing people come to us. Hey, I'm running these marathons, I'm doing everything right, I'd love for my weight to be 6 pounds lighter. Or or it's just somebody, I'm just trying to start moving again. I'm trying to get my blood pressure down, get my health right, and I have 35, 45, 55 pounds to lose. We get a lot of that. But that is not exclusively what we do. A lot of our clients, so specifically about 12% of our clients, are those higher end athletes and hard gainers, and people who are coming to me, it's like, I've done everything in the book. Here's what I want. I want to either enhance my performance for my marathon, my Ironman, my endurance training, my lifting, whatever the goal is. Or some people are actually wanting to put on muscular size. And believe it or not, the science that we use is the same. It's just the vehicle, of course, is a little different. We're going to adjust intake levels, calories, carbohydrates. And so in those cases, we need to condition a person's body. So in your case, yes, we would want you eating more carbs prior and post events, like you did a marathon. Better still, we condition your metabolism over several weeks leading up to that event to actually be able to utilize more fuel and run hotter. And when you do that, your body can handle a higher intake 24/7, which is going to enhance your recovery. And that's what translates to when someone's already coming to me and is already a very high level athlete. They say, help me get to the next level. One of the first things that I look at is where their base metabolic rate is. If I know where their base metabolic rate is, we can nearly always enhance their performance by bringing their metabolic rate up, even if a little. So that's really what I look for with a lot of higher end athletes. Everyone has different goals though.
Yeah, and when you're actually setting those goals, how do you make sure that they're effective? And one of the things I'd like to dive into is just how specific to be, because I think there's really a range where you probably have people coming to you with everything from just, I want to eat healthier broadly, to you use weight loss as an example, saying, hey, I want to lose 5 pounds or 7 pounds or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we do get a mix. So I would say my clientele is kind of biased towards the specific. I'm usually not the first call they've ever made, right? So by the time they get to me, for example, I worked with a number of the contestants who were previously on the Biggest Loser Ranch, right? And so now here they are trying to rehab their metabolism. Usually by the time they get to me, they're coming to us for a very specific reason. They know what they want. Like, look, I've done keto, I've done South Beach, I've done intermittent fasting, I've done vegan, I've done vegetarian, I've done everything in between. My metabolic rate, there's something wrong, help fix it. So we get a lot of that. We get a lot of those difficult cases. The other thing we get a lot of is, I've been running for years, my times are pretty good, my performance is pretty good. I'm just feeling inspired. I want to see if I can hit a couple PRs and take it to the next level. And I've heard nutrition plays a role. And it does indeed. I already eat clean. Great. We're going to take it to the next level. And that's where that baseline testing is just transformative. Baseline testing is the key.
So does the way you frame the goal even matter? And when I say that, I'm thinking in terms of, say you're a runner and I'm coming to you and going, hey, I want to run faster next year. Does it matter if I tell you just, I want to run faster, or hey, I want to run a 3-minute PR, or I want to hit this time, or BQ, or whatever else? Is it the same either way, or does it actually change your nutrition, how exactly you frame that?
No, it is different. And Corey, see, I teed you up to ask me, what's baseline testing? So we'll come back to that. But no, that was a good next question. Is it the same? Because that's kind of a gripe in the fitness community, especially more so than the nutrition, but both. Is, when somebody's carrying around a hammer, all they see is nails. You've heard that expression. Definitely applies to fitness professionals and nutritionists to a degree. So sometimes people are really passionate about, well, this plan or this program or this training technique is great, and they start trying to apply it to everything. And I wish my job were that easy. It just doesn't work that way. So, for example, is somebody trying to enhance their time, performance for a long distance run? We're talking type 1 muscle fiber training, endurance, stamina, type 1 muscle fiber, red twitch fiber recruitment, the efficiency of using both the lipolytic and oxidative pathway. Now that's a completely different conversation. Help me get faster. Okay, that's a different conversation. Now we're talking about in the glycolytic pathway. Now we're talking about explosive muscle fibers. So you can't, apples and oranges, you have to know exactly what you're trying to improve if you want to get optimal. Now, it is true, the average person who is in modest shape, poor to modest shape, that level of specificity may not be required out of the gate, but once somebody reaches a certain level of proficiency in their sport, to take it to the next level, being a generalist is the enemy of results. You have to be a specialist. So here's where I'll get a lot, Corey. I'll get guys and gals that'll call me and like, Mr. Polley, I know who you are, I know who you worked with. Here's what I want. All right, like, check this. Here's what I want. I want to, run a sub 6-minute mile. I want to drop 30 pounds. I want to bench 300. And they go down this laundry list of performance goals. And they're like, I've heard about you. Can you really get me there? I'm like, yeah, I can get you there. Here's what I need to know from you. Which one first? If you're trying to do them all, you're going to accomplish exactly none of them. Exactly none of them. If your nutrition and training is specific enough to check off one of those boxes, we pick which one we're going to do first. The nice thing is just because you pick one to do first doesn't mean you have to abandon the others. It just means you have to focus on one at a time. Great. I can squat my body weight. I can do this. I can do that. Now I'm going to maintain that while I work on this next goal, this next goal, this next goal. And so, of course, a lot of your audience here is going to be thinking about running and how it relates to, enhanced performance for running. Well, same thing. Big piece of the equation for our runners is just understanding the metabolic consequences of dieting, revving, bulking, or stripping, and how to time that around their events. Because there is a right time to go, okay, I want to enhance my performance. I also want to be 10 pounds lighter. Well, guess what? The reality is the diet that will make you 10 pounds lighter will not enhance your performance. So does it mean you have to pick one or the other? No, we get to do both. We get to do both. We just have to pick specific times where here's where we're focusing on your performance. We're going to fuel your body appropriately. We're going to give it everything it needs. And here's a period of time where you're going to deload and we're going to adjust your nutrition and take off that 10 pounds you want to lose. By the way, it would actually be 12 and I'd make them gain 2 back, but that's a little deeper conversation. And then now we can hold that and then get back into a performance cycle, and that's where you really separate the good from the great. Those that have the science to really manipulate on that level. And the truth is, it's not that hard to do. Most people that work with us, like when we explain, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, most people go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, it's kind of almost obvious. I get that now. It's not like the secret, well, you're going to do this secret recipe. No. It's common sense stuff, but it is critical to know when you're going to do a performance cycle, a revving cycle, when you can do a stripping cycle, and know when it's time to switch back and forth between. I'm going to try your second cue, and that's why baseline testing is so important.
So, Angelo, we did touch on this in another podcast I did with Amber, but it would be cool to define just quickly when we talk about these revving cycles or other cycles in your nutrition. What exactly do those mean, and how does that change your nutrition?
So when somebody is trying to either enhance performance or, just as commonly, their metabolic rate has bottomed out and they need to raise their metabolic rate, we go into a revving cycle. Revving cycle will always correspond to a performance cycle, but a revving cycle does not exclusively have to be used as, I'm putting on muscle or I'm going for a more faster time. It can be used as, no, my goal is to lose the next 40 pounds, but I need to level set, reset my metabolic rate first so I can get the next 20 and then the next 20 after that. So that's a revving cycle, and the way it simply works is this. I'm breaking this down. I'm trying to just give you the highlights here, but essentially I'm going to make you gain and lose the same pound over and over again over about 3 weeks. But I'm going to do it in such a way that is going to skyrocket your metabolism. So let's take you, for example, Corey. Let's say I wanted to force your metabolic rate up. I would have you systematically eat, okay, we're going to eat an extra 150 calories a day. We're going to increase your carbs by just a small amount. Nothing big, just a small amount. And what you would do is you'd go away and you'd add that and you'd come back to me and you'd say nothing happened. I'd say, yeah, that's about par for the course. We're going to double it now. You'd go away, you'd come back like, still nothing happened. I said, not surprising. You're an ectomorphic body type. You already have a fast metabolism. Well, guess what? I'm going to have you add that same amount again. And finally, you're going to come back to me the next day and you go, Angelo, I gained a pound. And you say, perfect. That's the threshold I was looking for. Now go burn that pound off. Here's the catch. You don't get to eat a bite less food. Not a bite less. Now you can't go and burn off without changing your diet. You can't burn off 20 pounds. You're not going to go run 20 pounds off tomorrow, right? But what you can do is you can go and you can do an extra 20 minutes of your cardio. You can tack on an extra mile of low intensity jogging or whatever it is that's at your level, and you can burn 1 pound off. And now you're going to come back to me, Corey, you're going to say to me, Angelo, you're such a jerk, I hate you, you're despicable, you're mean, why would you make me do that? And I said, perfect, go gain that pound back. And I would make you eat more and more until you gained the pound back, and we took it back off. Eventually, your metabolic rate is going to be running so high because we keep adding food and swapping, gaining and losing the same pound. Now, say you wanted to lose weight, what would happen if then, instead of taking out 150 calories, or taking out 20 grams of carbs, now we take out 150 grams of carbs, 200 grams of carbs all in one shot. What do you think is going to happen to your body fat?
If you're taking out a bunch of carbs at once, I would assume it's going to go down.
Correct. It'll incinerate off of you. So that's the same principle that bodybuilders use. And I don't work with many bodybuilders. I used to back in the day work with lots of physique competitors. But today I don't work with that many bodybuilders, but the science still holds true, whether you're in a different sport, whether you're in a power sport or an endurance sport or just in the sport of reducing body composition, is fat loss is not some magic combination of broccoli and chicken, right? Like, well, I'm a bodybuilder. What do I eat? I eat brown rice and chicken and broccoli and like, well, Mr. Polley, your athlete looks amazing on stage. If I eat broccoli and chicken and brown rice, will I look like him? No, you won't. Because it's not about the ingredients per se. It's about the contrast. So that athlete that they saw on stage was eating gradually more and more. They started at 2,000 calories a day. Over the course of about 4 months, I brought them up to about 3,800 calories a day. If they started at 3,000, I brought them up dang near 5,000 calories a day. Gradually, very gradually, as their body could utilize it. And then before the competition, we cut. Now when they're eating 2,200 calories of boiled chicken and broccoli, because the delta, the contrast between what their body was used to is so great, the body fat incinerates off of them. It just incinerates off of them, and that's where the magic happens. And it's not hard to execute. It's just a matter of, understanding your baseline testing, and it's just a matter of knowing how to manipulate your metabolism. And when you understand what baseline testing is, it's not hard to do. We do it all the time.
All right, you're queuing me up, so let's get into it, Angelo. I come to you, I say, I want to run faster, we're doing baseline testing. How does that work, and what does it tell me?
I thought you'd never ask, Corey. So this is what basically every nutritionist from the beginning of nutritionists has been doing. You've all been to a nutritionist who's like, hey, well, keep a food journal, show me what you eat, okay? Here's a meal plan, come back, and let's see how you do. That has essentially been the model for sports nutrition for decades. I know, I was part of it decades ago. I'm giving away my age. But I was a big part of it. There are all kinds of holes in this. Let me tell you, this is honest. This is a conversation that I would have like repeatedly in a day. Okay? Client comes back, says, all right, I followed that meal plan you gave me for the last 3 weeks, Angelo. I said, great. He says, I lost 4 pounds. And then they say, is that good? I'm like, it's all right. And then I say, how'd you do on the meal plan? And they say, oh, I did pretty good. And we both stare at each other, having absolutely no clue what either one of us have just accomplished. We have no baseline, because when I say, that's pretty good, they don't know if I think they were slouching, or if they were doing great, or if it was like not that impressive. And when I say, how did you do on your meal plan? And they say pretty good, I have no clue how adherent they've been for the last 3 weeks. This is the problem. So nutritionists got wise, and they decided, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have you keep me a food diary. So now you come to me and I have this food diary of what you eat. That is better, because now what I can do is I can take the last week of everything you've eaten, and I can run averages and say, okay, on average each day you're eating about 140 grams of protein, and you're eating 260 grams of carbs. If we divide it over 7 days, here's your rough averages. And this week you got roughly this result. Oh, you stayed the same weight. It's still not perfect. It's better than nothing, and this is something anyone can do at home, by the way. It's better than nothing, but it's not perfect, because you're eating something different every day. You're eating them in different times, with different frequency, in different combinations, which alter the glycemic load, which alter your hormonal response. You have kind of the maximum amount of variables still present, knowing the outside limits, right? But it gets us a little closer. So what we started doing, now I'm going back a decade ago at our company, okay? What we started doing is I started having people baseline test for 7 days, where I would give them a meal plan, and I would say, follow this exactly for a week. It was awesome. I had just pinpoint accuracy with the data. A week later, I could build them literally the perfect meal plan for them. Problem though, 7 days of eating exactly the same thing for someone unaccustomed to doing that was rough. So what we did was we experimented. We said, okay, at the end of 7 days, we do our calculations, and here's roughly what our calculations say. This person needs more calories or more carbohydrates, or less calories or less carbohydrates, or roughly the same but optimized, okay? We get a direction. So we started doing it with just 5 days of data. The outcome was identical. We couldn't tell a difference between what we would recommend after 5 days versus 7 days. So we started doing it with just 72 hours of data. In other words, we work with thousands and thousands of people, so we see what would happen if they continue for a week, and we correct ourselves. With 72 hours worth of data, we get the same outcome about 89% of the time that we would with 7 days of data. So it's not perfect, but it's close enough to start actioning. And then we got cocky, and we go, let's try it with 2 days worth of data. And the data was useless. We get about 55, 60% accuracy at best. But with 72 hours, with just 3 days of data, we can identify with about 90% accuracy where someone's metabolic rate is and what adjustments we need to start making. And if we were off, we'll catch it in the next 48 hours. It's not like, oh, everything's ruined. We'll still be able to figure it out. But that's why actually using a baseline testing protocol, it makes all the difference in the world, because people just don't know. The truth is, most people are taught about nutrition by Hollywood. Just marketing, what we hear in the advertisements, what we see in the entertainment. Oh, you're this height, you're this weight, you need this many calories. It's rubbish. I wish it was true. It'd make my job a whole lot easier. But Corey, if I took 10 guys built like you, lined them up, and we collected a food log from all 10 of them, right? Here's how I eat. This is what's maintaining my weight. You know what all those food logs would have in common?
Not much.
Nothing. They'd have nothing in common. Couldn't pick it out of a lineup. Everyone's body is so unique, and it's because of this fundamental scientific truth. Your metabolism, it's called adaptive thermogenesis. Your metabolism acclimates to your environment. Yes, your height, your weight, your activity, and your gender influence it. Yes, the amount of muscle you have on your body influences it. Not as much as people think. It does influence it. But it is not the biggest influencer. The biggest influencer is what your body is accustomed to. If you're accustomed to 2,000 calories a day, if I put you on 2,500 calories, you are going to lose weight. You are going to gain weight, rather, 10 out of 10 times. If you are accustomed to 2,000 calories a day, and I put you on 1,500 calories, you're going to lose weight 10 out of 10 times. The key is most people have no idea where their starting threshold is. A lot of times their threshold's too low because they've been yo-yo dieting for months or years, and they're still trying to create a deficit that's not there. They have to go through a Revving cycle first. A lot of times people are trying to gain weight, and they're not even in the ballpark of enough calories or enough intake because they read the math and they said, well, 1 pound of gram protein per body pound, and I got this, and I'm following this mathematical equation. And I'm like, yeah, you're a 17-year-old football player who's 6'3" and 165 pounds. You're not even in the ballpark of what's actually going to stick to you. So really the baseline test that we need and the data we need is not how somebody else in some other study responded. That's good to have, but it's how you respond. And the beauty is 72 hours. 72 hours, if you can follow a script for 72 hours. And the nice thing is these baseline testing protocols, anyone can really do it. I mean, you could design your own, just a similar breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe 1 or 2 of the same snacks. That's what we do. Our meal plans are unique in this, in that I've had, if you're a 42-year-old female between 140, 160 pounds, moderately active, runs on the weekend, I've had 4,600 women similar to you follow this exact meal plan, and I can tell you where the averages are, where the outliers are, and exactly what I would expect following this meal plan. And you may be an outlier, but you may not. But I at least have that basis for comparison versus just, throwing darts. So once we see where a person is at, then, now, your goal is performance. Okay, well, I know what's maintaining your current performance level, so how do we increase that by 6%? Well, here's the dials. And then it gets a little more nuanced, of course. It's like, well, what do I add? Just random calories? No, there's optimization, of course. But that's the fun part. So that's what we spend our days geeking out on. Hopefully I described that in a way that makes some sense to you, Corey.
Absolutely no. I think I like the science-based approach where you take a sample, you see how people react to how they eat, and then use that as a baseline. But I think once you have that idea of what to eat, it almost feels like that's the easy part. I mean, I think to me, a lot of the reason why people are probably coming to you in the new year is they might have a sense high level what they should be eating, but they're just not doing it, and it's hard during the holidays. So what do you tell these people once you have that goal? What strategies can you use to actually stick to that goal?
Yep. So preparation is key. First thing is psychological. So the difference between doing it on your own and doing it with a professional largely is psychological, that if you're doing it on your own, it's an awful lot of work if you're not sure ahead of time whether or not you're going to get the desired result. If you're sure because you've done this before, great. If you're not sure, you're a lot more likely to follow through with something that feels like some work when you have someone who's like, yeah, I've done this thousands of times. This is exactly what you can expect. You will see these results. No, you won't see that. That's not realistic. Yes, this is realistic. Here's exactly what you can expect. Here's the pace you can expect, because we've done it over and over and over again with people. So that's the first thing, that trust. The second thing is just the practical tips. So some of my favorite nutrition tips that I give anyone, but it's great for going, starting the new year with a lot of people, set some new fitness and nutrition goals. Preparation remains. Statistically, we've analyzed thousands and thousands of clients that we've worked with at Metpro. Statistically, those who do some level, it doesn't have to be extensive, but some level of advanced preparation for their food get radically better results. And what's interesting is we find that to be the case regardless of where someone's metabolic rate is or what somebody's physical abilities are. It's just across the board. If you participate in some level of advanced preparation, which is why one of the first strategy sessions that we have with all the people we work with is here's how you do food prep without taking a long time. It's all about time management. Here's how to make it simple. And everybody's prepping the wrong meals. I hear, well, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Yeah, but I don't care about your breakfast because that's not where you're eating all the crap. That's where you're eating good most of the time. There's always outliers, right? Most people, I'm like, well, can you eat something clean? What do you like for breakfast? You can eat, like, yeah, I can eat that, and they have no problem. Piece of cake. Never have problems with people at breakfast. My issue with people, with everyone, with myself, is what happens between 10 a.m. and about 4 p.m. Because our culture is just go, go, go. We're nonstop. We got to drop off Johnny. We got to pay the bills. We got to meet this deadline. The boss is calling. We got projects. We're behind. We're late. We're stressed. What we eat ends up being a product of convenience, a product of geography, or you can either, stop in the middle of your day, go home, put on your apron, start chopping vegetables and grill up some chicken or slice up some tofu, or you can have this delicious, greasy cheeseburger that's ready now that costs a nickel. It's like, that's really what the options our society gives us, what's going to happen more often. So preparation is key. Next tip is pack a go bag. So when you get derailed, you should have a go bag of nutritional snacks that have very unique properties to them. You ready? Here's those properties. It's not what you think. Like high protein, right? Here's the properties you're looking for. It has to be not messy. If it requires a bunch of napkins, it's a bad go bag emergency snack. It needs to be quick. If you have a bunch of things you have to peel and take off, it's not a good emergency snack. It has to be low perishability. If it goes bad, if you leave it in your car, if the temperature gets too hot, cottage cheese, while healthy and a great weight loss food, is not a good emergency snack. You want things that are low perishability, not messy, quick, and lean. There it is. You put them in a bag, a go bag, you throw them in your glove box or your trunk, and even if you forget it, they'll still work a few days later. That's a good emergency bag. And we have lists of foods that fall under those categories that are healthy and fresh. That will work. And so those are the little things that the average person doesn't, spend their waking hours at 2 a.m. thinking about. Only us nerds at Metpro do that.
Yeah, one of the things I love about this approach of just like easily convenient and non-perishable snacks is it kind of serves goals for people with all problems in that 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. block. And what I mean by that is I think you have some people who will eat like crap for convenience, but I think especially for runners who are burning a lot, I think a common problem when you're go is you just don't eat or you don't eat enough.
Correct.
So I think it solves that problem too.
Yes. And I'll give you one more way of thinking about something, maybe from a new angle. Snacks. Snacks are so valuable. So, there's this whole movement in the health, wellness, more so in the weight loss industry than the fitness industry, but regardless, there's this whole movement, is it better to snack or not to snack? If you're working with me, you will definitely be snacking. And for none of the reasons you would think. None of the reasons you would think. You want to know why? I have every one of my clients really focus on specific snacks.
Can I take a guess?
Please.
I'm thinking if you want to modify people through these different cycles, that it's a lot easier to slightly tweak your intake through a snack. Is that at all what you were thinking?
What? Very good. I'm impressed, Corey. That's exactly it. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pat myself on the back.
Man, you should. Well done. That's exactly it. So much easier for me to have specificity when I control your snacks. Because nobody argues with me over snacks. You know why? We don't take snacks socially. You're not going out with your friends to have, an apple and 12 almonds. It's just you have it, and it's never a debate. It's like, well, I've been having pressure to add walnuts to my snack. It's not a thing, right? So because you're in control of those snacks, I'm going to lean heaviest into them, because the reality is you will have meals out of the day that maybe you don't have as much control over. Specifically, dinners are sometimes harder to be as predictable. So if I'm already going to have to endure a measure of unpredictability with like dinner, for example, I want to make darn sure, hey, I got the exact macros, the exact ratios, the exact intakes at those meals that are not a problem to have control over. So you nailed it. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's always what I find is when I'm deep into a marathon cycle is what I'm thinking of. Like oftentimes I have a certain habit that I like of when I eat meals and how big they are. So I often find I snack more often, right? Bigger snacks is typically how I get it in.
That's the way to do it. That's it. You got it.
Do you have any favorite snacks you recommend to your clients?
I do. So it depends. So this isn't going to work if you happen to be vegan or vegetarian, but I love jerky, nuts, and you choose your own. If it's okay to have some fruit because you don't need it to be ultra low perishable, fruit would be my favorite option. Specifically fruit with peel, in other words, fruit where you eat the outside of it, not fruit that you discard the outside. That has to do with the glycemic load, sugar content, etc. So apple would work great. Grapes, berries, all those great options. Plums, peach, etc. All those great options. And so that's one of my favorite snacks. If you need something that's ultra low perishable, replace that fruit with something like a rice cake, where you're getting a straight carb, but it'll survive Armageddon in the back of your car, right? Those will be good for a while. So that would be kind of a second option. Now, if you don't do a lot of animal protein, then just easily replace like the jerky with any of your favorite protein sources that are plant-based, and that's just fine also. But something along those lines, I'm a really big fan of because of how convenient and quick. And I know people are saying, well, how about just do a bar? So the truth is, we've gotten really good at making shakes taste good and still be extremely lean. Not as good at making bars taste good and be extremely lean. Now, there's a big asterisk here. If fat loss is not a concern, there are good options. But if we are trying to manage caloric intake, you're going to get too many calories for not enough satiety if you're going the bar route on a regular basis. In a pinch, there's a lot of good brands. But on a regular basis, I'd much rather you eat a whole food. So hopefully that helps kind of clear up some confusion around the whole snacking protocol.
Yeah, and I think it does come back to goals, because I know, again, coming back to a marathon or putting in a lot of mileage, that might be exactly what you want, is to get in something that has a lot of calories without too much satiety.
That's it. Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about some of the goals your clients have and then how to stick to it, but I think one of the things that's really foundational to what you guys do at Metpro is it's so specific to the individual. So say you find that something's just not working for whatever reason, either maybe the person's body isn't reacting the way you expect, they're that other 11% after the 72 hours, or maybe they don't like the diet. How do you then tweak or find what is going to work for that person?
So I'll put this in terms of weight loss again, just because it's very linear and easy to understand, but weight gain or whatever goal you have, it works the same way. So there's not a scenario where we're going to scratch our head and go, well, I just can't figure it out. You can't seem to lose weight. That's not a thing if you're human. You're flesh and blood. You will have a threshold where you will start losing weight at, and I will find it. Now, here's what you're talking about, though. What we may find is that threshold is not sustainable. It's too low, or it's not sustainable for you or your lifestyle. And that does happen at times. When that happens, that's our trigger to tell us, okay, we have to go into a revving cycle and address your metabolic rate first, bring that up, and then we can go into a cutting cycle and we'll have bandwidth, will have leverage to cut without taking you long. So I'll give you a classic example. A lot of people come to me like, well, Angelo, I want to lose 20 pounds. Like, no problem. Great. Like, what are you currently eating? Well, I'm doing intermittent fasting and keto. Like, so basically you're having a beef stick twice a day. Like, yeah, pretty much. Like, perfect. You can't lose 20 pounds. You've played every card in the deck. You've done everything you can. It's like there's no mystery here. We figured out the diet that causes the fastest weight loss. It's water. That's the diet. Just straight water. Turns out if you only eat that, you die. So we can't do that, right? So this isn't going to work. So what we actually have to do is we have to add food back. Well, won't I gain weight? Probably. Yeah. But the way we're going to do it, you're going to gain 1 or 2 pounds back versus the way I know you and you are going to do it, you're going to gain 12 pounds back. So I'm going to get you to gain 1 or 2 pounds back. We're going to heal your metabolic rate. We're going to get it to recover, come back to a healthy, fast running, vibrant point. Then from there, we'll get you to lose the next 10, 20 pounds. So that does happen. Somebody wants to gain weight. Similar thing can happen, though less often. It's usually easier to play that game. The reason someone's not able to gain weight is because they're reading all the bodybuilding and fitness magazines and how to get big muscles. They're eating all those foods, and those foods are usually designed for maximum satiety. So you have things like chicken breast and brown rice and sweet potato and eggs, and these are all the right foods, and for hard gainers, they're exactly wrong. Not because they're not good foods, but because you can only fit so much physically into your belly. Runners as well, digestively, because you don't want to get the running trots. This is a big thing we deal with, right? So, runners especially, you have to know how to get extremely dense foods sometimes. And they're not always the first ones you'd think of when you're thinking of fitness protocol, but that doesn't mean they're not good, not healthy. There's lots of great options that will get you quality protein, quality carbohydrates, quality fats, not put a bunch of body fat on you, get your caloric intake way up, and not give you a stomach ache. So that's what we help our clients to do. Digestively, there's always a little bit of trial and error because everyone's body is different, certainly metabolically, but then there's this whole other layer of digestively, everyone's a little different as well. I've got some clients, they can literally drywall and nails and feel fine. Other clients, gluten intolerances, sensitivities, a whole bunch of stuff. Myself, I have a more sensitive stomach. I can empathize with that. So we have to play a little bit of that game as well. But there's always an answer to make forward progress. If you're willing to, be strategic and put in the work. So that's how we kind of troubleshoot through those difficult cases.
Angelo, this is resonating so much because I've been known and said on the show that I just absolutely love spicy food, which is in direct conflict with my love of running, especially as somebody who runs first thing in the morning.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We have to make some sacrifices to honor our digestive system. No denying it.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the sacrifices I have to make. So, for runners whose goals are not specifically weight-based, maybe that tweaking might not be as simple. So if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily have a goal to gain weight or lose weight, but you find that performance just isn't there and it might be tied to nutrition, how can you maybe then figure out what types of changes might be needed?
Yeah, so the same process of baseline testing to identify where someone's thresholds are at, but what our focus is recomping and enhancing performance. So we kind of do almost like a light version of what I just described to you, how we enhance performance, where I'd make you gain and lose the same pound. Well, instead of gaining and losing the same pound, what we're looking for is to optimize your intake. And my definition of optimize is maybe different than what most people think. I'm not talking about, including these particular macro and micronutrients, that's important too. When I'm saying optimize, what I'm saying is get your body accustomed to finding ways that we can push more fuel through you without hitting those roadblocks of digestive issues, gaining body fat, or any of those negative consequences. If we can push more fuel through you by spreading meals across the day, by getting the right combinations of foods, the right macronutrient combos, and the right totals, the result is going to be enhanced performance. It will certainly be enhanced recovery, and that nearly always translates into enhanced performance. Most people tell me by the end of week 2 that they feel the difference in their runs. When just strictly, weight loss isn't a goal, weight gain isn't a goal, they're just looking for performance. This is someone who's already performing well. Most people, by the end of week 2, we have their diet dialed in, their routine dialed in enough to where they find they can feel the difference.
Incredible. And so for this concept of sort of spreading out your eating, I'm interested, you talked about how key these snacks are, and of course it's easier to do that if you're eating more than 3 times a day. So putting aside the actual quantities, like how many times a day are you actually recommending a lot of your clients to snack?
So I can give you a scientific answer, and then I can give you a real answer.
Okay.
So the scientific answer is there's going to be basically a linear translation to enhanced performance and leverage with what we can do with you metabolically and recover-wise, and increasing meal frequency. There's going to be a corresponding straight line of, your spouse and your family tolerating you if every 25 minutes you have to stop and eat, right? So we have to balance science with actual realities of life. My average client I have eating 3 square meals and 2 snacks. Now, for a large percentage, I actually have them eating 6 times a day. And for a percentage, I have them only eating 4 times a day, 3 meals and 1 snack. So really it's going to depend on what's going to work best for you. When I was working with an NFL player once, who will remain nameless, they'll fine you if you don't make weight, if you're not the right weight, based on your position in the NFL. So in this case, he needed to gain weight and gain it rapidly. So we had him eating 7 times during the day and his alarm clock going off at 2 in the morning for an 8th meal. Now, I recommend that to no one. You shouldn't do that. Don't even think about it. It's not worth it. This was a small window of 7 weeks right before NFL season. We had a very specific purpose for it, right? But it goes to show that you really could do a lot of things if your goal is to absolutely min-max your body's potential for anabolism and recovery and eradicate that catabolic effect as much as possible. You need to be catabolic part of the time, of course. But there's always going to be a reasonable blend based on someone's schedule, preferences, lifestyle, age, specifics, and what's realistic. And here's what I would much rather. I'd much rather someone nail 3 square meals and 1 snack and get it dialed than fail trying to eat 5 times or 6 times a day. So we'd figure out where your spot is at, and we would just really hone in on it. But assume there would be some snacks involved.
Angelo, I want to play to the extremes just because I'm curious
Hit
how
me.
you would manage this scenario. But if you have somebody coming to you saying, hey, I want to eat better, I want to perform better, I want to run better, but also I intermittent fast, I don't eat 16 hours of the day, how are you directing this person to eat? Because even eating 4 times in that remaining 8 hours is going to be tough.
Yeah, so if somebody is actively intermittent fast, so here's the thing. There's been so many studies around intermittent fasting. The problem is there's so many different ways of implementing it. Some ways are just fine, not a big deal. Other ways are absolutely performance crushing. And we have just endless amount of data and research to support this. And it's kind of a no-brainer. If you go and you try and perform your best after 12 hours of fasting, you're not going to have the fuel to perform your best. That's not like that's not some sort of revelation that people are just having. So how you implement it is critical. Unfortunately, what happens is people do kind of the weight loss version, which is I eat all my calories the back half of the day and don't eat in the morning. Most people also like to train first half of the day, and those two things are somewhat at odds. That does not mean, I have some clients that's like, here's my schedule and here's the windows that I eat, and we'll work around it. We'll optimize within that. But we have to apply some common sense. If you eat large amounts at night and you wake up in the morning, your appetite mechanic is shut off. That's why you find that it's easy to just not eat first half of your day. Well, most people find that because they've conditioned their digestive system, and that appetite response actually slows down. Guess what? That's also your metabolic rate slowing down. So this is not a intermittent fasting bashing session. I've actually had a client that I was able to get him to bust through using a measure of intermittent fasting. It's simply a matter of implementation. So what I would probably do is I would optimize how they're implementing it, negotiate, maybe compromise in a few areas, and then there would be certain times where I would encourage, you can do some intermittent fasting, and then there would be times where it really just doesn't have a large place, like right leading up to a race. I would discourage doing any heavy use of intermittent fasting. So that again is coming from the angle of people who are doing it for the purpose of the fat loss benefits. Again, there have been ad nauseum studies that show that, you know, if you eat all the same amount of calories, you know, in one meal versus spread out in multiple meals, you get roughly the same result. So it's not the window per se. There is a little bit of that. There is some science to it. But for the lay person, the layman, the reason that they will sometimes experience fat loss when they're doing intermittent fasting is because, and not everybody falls into this, so don't take it for face value, but if you have someone who hits the drive-thru for breakfast, hit McDonald's for dinner, and hits Taco Bell, for lunch, and then pretty soon they're skipping the drive-thru for breakfast and they're just doing Taco Bell for lunch and the drive-thru for dinner, they're going to see net progress. That usually does not apply in the same way to the person who is already having a calorie calculated, macronutrient calculated, thoughtful progression of integrated meals throughout the day to enhance performance. They're probably not going to see the same performance enhancements by simply skipping part of that. That being said, there are some benefits to strategic implementation of intermittent fasting. We just have to negotiate how that works around running times. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer. I'm passionate about that one, though.
No, I like it. I can tell. I like the negotiation and back and forth with your clients.
Some good questions today, Corey. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we've gotten a lot in the nitty-gritty, and it's fascinating the process you go to just nail down people's nutrition. But I think getting to the highest level, without speaking to a specific individual and what their plan would look like, if there's any other kind of generally applicable advice that you would give to runners that we haven't touched on yet, what would it be?
If I can, I guess maybe I can do a shameless plug here, but not just for me, but for our runners, right? Just consider reaching out and just go through an evaluation, but not like looking at it like, okay, am I investing in a program? Reach out and actually come to the table with information. So when somebody reaches out to us at Metpro, it's not like, okay, here's our program, here's how much we charge. You want to work with us? That's not what that conversation is. We're going to say, okay, tell us about your background. Tell us what your fitness culture is, what your nutrition culture is. Do you mind sharing how you eat currently and how you've eaten in the past? And give me your weight history. And really, what are your challenges right now? Do you feel stuck? And if you do feel stuck, tell us, where are you stuck at? And I'm not saying we have all the answers, because we don't, but I can tell you it's likely we've worked with 100, if not 1,000 people that are stuck somewhere very similar, because we do this day in and day out. And so while everyone's physiology is different, what I would do and what my coaches would do on that call is they would share with you what others who have faced similar challenges, similar roadblocks have done and changed and tweaked that has really transformed their performance or helped them get to the next level with their goals. And it's shocking sometimes. It's not always a huge thing. Sometimes it's just a nuanced little tweak. Sometimes it's a big thing, right? But sometimes it's just they were so close. They were doing 90% of it right, but just that 10% was what was stopping them from seeing that next plateau, that next level, you know? And that's the stuff that I really would encourage. And I'm not encouraging our listeners to do anything that I myself don't do. How years ago when I first got into this field, I sought out who I felt were the best and most knowledgeable in particular areas of human performance, and I would, I can't tell you how valuable an hour of their time was, and that's how I started growing in my passion and my education. And look, even if you reach out and you do a consultation, our program certainly is not for everyone. But we're happy to do it, even if you're just calling to get information. Because here's what'll happen: you'll pass this information on. Maybe at some point somebody will ask you and say, I'm really struggling with this, that, or the other. If you have a good experience with us, I'm confident you'll share your experience with others. So take advantage of the knowledge that we have accumulated. I have been shouting this from the rooftops for years because the truth is there's so much misinformation out there. Not misinformation like, well, it turns out that, fried chicken is actually good for you. That's not what I'm talking about. Misinformation about how the metabolism responds in relation to body composition and in relation to performance and recovery. There is just so much confusion. And if you want proof of that, Google weight loss nutrition or performance nutrition. You're going to literally get hundreds of thousands of different ideas. And it's not that they're all snake oil salesmen. It's not that they're all wrong. It's that each person has done something that, lo and behold, look, it worked for them. And they saw some benefit from it. So now they start preaching that maybe extreme idea. It's not that it's necessarily wrong, but most people don't know how all these different ideas, I watch this influencer on Instagram or TikTok and they say I should be doing this. Does this apply to me? Well, call us up here at Metpro and ask us, and we'll tell you if it might apply to you or not. And if it sounds a little wonky, we definitely would like to chat with you about it first. That's all.
I love diving into the TikTok trends. I think we even did that a little bit with your colleague Amber, and then with the Cairo that we had on the podcast.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. No, there's some good stuff even there, but there's sure some weird stuff out there as well. So we like solid science based on the research and based on facts.
Perfect. So if anyone is not so keen to dive into those TikTok or Facebook trends, and for the new year looking to either work with yourself or anyone else at the team at Metpro, where can they learn more?
Our team is genuinely and authentically excited to visit with you. Go to metpro.co/RTTT for Run to the Top. So metpro.co/RTTT. And we'd love to talk with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Angelo, for joining me to chat and really going through how runners can dial in the nutrition for 2025. Happy New Year to everyone listening.
Hey, thanks, Corey. Have a good one, buddy.
Thanks. You as well.